If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who just wants to know what's happening in the property market, then the UK Property Market Statistics Show is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and today I'm joined by Iain McKenzie, and we'll have a chat with him in a second. And we're here to talk about what is happening in the UK property market. Most statistics that get published look at the bottom end of the funnel. We're looking at properties that have completed, that mortgage offers have been made off. You look at the Halifax or Nationwide indexes, they're looking at properties where the mortgage offer has been made. And then they're already a couple of months out of date anyway. Then you've got the Land Registry, and they're searching for properties that have been completed. But again, these are properties where the sale was agreed 20 weeks ago. And again, as soon as it completes, it does take another 2 or 3 months for it to appear on the Land Registry. So if you're following the indexes and wanting to know what's happening in the property market, the stats that those sort of guys are checking out, quite frankly, are 6 to 9 months out of date. We're looking at the top end of the funnel. We're looking at the number of houses coming onto the market. We're looking at the number of properties reducing and the number of properties that are selling sold subject to contract. Now, we all know that sold subject to contract means nothing because they're not legally tied in. But if the property is not sold, it is not going to complete. We're here to analyze this on a week-by-week basis and then look at what's happening compared to the rest of the year. Today, I'm joined by Iain McKenzie. Iain McKenzie is the boss man of the Guild of Property Professionals. The Guild of Property Professionals is an affiliate group of the estate agency of over 800 of the best in the UK. He has his finger on the pulse. So we're going to dive into the stats and have a look. But before we do, let us just have a quick introduction to Iain. Iain, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, always a pleasure.
Never a chore to see you, young man. You're looking as gorgeous as ever. It looks like you've been on holiday there, mate.
In the garden. Nothing more than doing gardening at the weekend.
Fantastic. Well, Iain comes from the sunny suburb of Winchester, which is a suburb of posh London, a beautiful place. I would certainly recommend you go. Right, so boys and girls, we're here today, and the show will last approximately 60 minutes, and it will be going as follows. First half an hour, we'll be looking at the national statistics and really delving deep into them. We'll probably spend 5 or 10 minutes having a quick look at the regional figures. We won't go too deep in that, otherwise the show would be hours long. But you can download all the statistics from the YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, the one that you're watching on this, go into the description and there's a little link there where you can download all the stats from the whole of the show that you can use for your own personal benefit. And then at the end, we spend the last 15 minutes focusing on a town or a city in the UK and really delving deep into how each agent works. And this week, Iain, we are going to the beautiful place of Halifax in West Yorkshire. Do you know the town? Do you know it well, or
not well? Went there many years ago on a training camp thing.
Excellent, good stuff. Oh, I think you used to work for Halifax, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Halifax Property Services many years ago, back in 96.
There you go. Join the club. There's quite a few of us that used to join HPS, or was it changed to HEA, Halifax Estate Agents? But anyway, let's not talk about us. Let's go deep dive and go straight into the stats. And as we always start, we always have to start at the top of the market, which is the number of listings. So here we go. So we're looking at week 23. Week 23 is, for the purposes, I'll just get the calendar up now. Hold on a second. Is Monday the 5th of June to Sunday the 11th of June. So that's week 23, and we are comparing week 23 against week 23 of all the years back to 2017. We will be looking at this in a week-by-week basis in a second, but I think it's always good to look at it in isolation to start with. So immediately we have 37,698 listings, which actually, apart from 2018, is a pretty high month, isn't it? A high week. Thoughts on this, Iain?
Yeah, it is a high week. And when you go through the next slides, there are some watch outs, I think, that we need to start considering in this sector. Stock is clearly not the issue. Quality of stock might be an issue. That's more regionalised. You'd have to know that from your own perspective as an agent. And potentially time frame to sell would be one of the other things I'll be looking at. So stock, not the issue. How you're valuing it and the quality of stock, potentially.
Good stuff. Right. Okay. Now, The next one is the average price of a property coming onto the market. And this week, the average price of a property coming on the market was 459. Oh, just before we do kick off on this one, the listings were up exactly 25% from last week. Although last week was 30,100, the week before it was 37,800 and 37,000 the week before. So, and again, we will see this in the stats when we get to it in a second. This time of year is a bit of a roller coaster on all the stats, and then she tends to level out, but we'll look at that in a second. So the average price is £459,000 against a running average of 432,500 for the year. This has been quite stubbornly high. I mean, the difference, which again we'll go into in about 5 minutes, is the gap between the average asking price of a property coming on the market and the average price of a property selling is still running in the early 20%. I know the Daily Mail ran an article on this one. Any thoughts on this? I mean, there is quite a gap. I mean, the average, well, let me keep my powder dry on that one.
Yeah, I know this is something you've always been concerned about, Chris, when I've listened to all of your brilliant videos throughout this year. You've been worried about the gap between the listing price and the sale price.
Okay. So the average for the whole 7 years has been around 16 or 17%. Okay. Yeah. My concern is when it gets into the 20s. That okay? Now that does, I mean, what that doesn't show overvaluing, because overvaluing has been around since Adam was a boy.
Yeah.
Just shows that the types of properties that are coming on the market versus the ones that are selling the gap's getting slightly bigger.
Yeah, I'm less worried about this particular stat because I think it's one of those ones that is emphasized by the scale. So that's a national perspective, and there will be large regional centres, London and other major cities, that will skew that figure a little bit.
Absolutely bang on, and we'll look at the regional stuff. I mean, one thing that really does not mess this up, but really affect this figure is the inner London figures.
Yeah.
Okay, let's save our powder for that one in a second. So cumulative listings to date. Now, again, the one that shouts out there is listings 2020. But again, you know, we had basically 2 or 3 months where nothing happened in the estate agency game. Again, listings seems to be driving forward there. I mean, compared to other years of 18 and 19, they're going to be catching up soon, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you think about the amount of bank holidays we've had this year, this is where I think we're starting to see the beginning of a more significant trend of it going into a buyer's market from a seller's market. Because first 4 or 5 months of this year have been fairly fluid from a listing to sell ratio. I think we're now just starting to see some trends that actually might become a bit more concerning, and certainly it means that agents are going to have to dust off their tool set from tougher years of the past and actually start to value differently and start to think about price corrections and managing stock strategies a little bit better. Okay,
right, let's go and have a look at the number of weekly listings, and the pink line is 23 and all the other dots you can see on the line there. What's your thoughts on this one?
My thoughts are, you can see the lumpiness which is due to the bank holidays and half terms, etc. What I'm now, the period that's most important is what is the period that replicates between week 3 and week 13, which is a period of stability from a holiday and half term perspective. Yep. What is actually this trend going to show us moving forward from here? And that's the same with price reductions and sale agrees. It's the next few weeks that I think are pretty important in terms of identifying what the end result of this year is going to be.
Absolutely bang on. And interestingly, we've done this on listings, nets, gross sales, and net sales, this graph, and all of them from week 3 onwards up until around the Easter period, everything is quite stable. Yep. Then, as you say, we go in the roller coaster. And you can see that 19 and 18 and 17, and the reason we've done 17, 18 and 19 is 20 was obviously a strange year, and 21 and 22, you really can't compare 23 with 21 and 22, can you?
No, they were the hottest market that we've had for 30 years, is reality.
Okay, let's move on and look at price changes. And now, just before we move on and talk about listings, a big takeaway, boys and girls, with regard to listings is this. One of the reasons why house prices dropped in 2018 is that a lot of people dumped their houses on the market because they couldn't afford the mortgages. So we are presently running at an average listing rate of 32,465 properties per week. If that starts getting into the early to mid 40s and knocking on the door, where if we get to the mid late 40s on average constantly and the sales don't match up, we've got to be aware of that. And just that could be an early precursor if things do change. This show does not talk about house prices per se. It talks about the things that could affect house prices. Are you surprised? I mean, again, a lot of people on fixed rate mortgages coming off them. And again, there was a lot of doom mongers saying 12 months ago that it was going to affect it. Are you seeing with your members, Iain, any change in terms of these stats can only say one thing? I'm talking about more sentiment of people, the reasons why people are coming on the market. And is any of it to do with, people just putting their house on the market because they can't afford the mortgage?
A little bit of that. We're certainly not to the distress levels that we've had in the past in the housing market. So I think people are holding on where that's concerned. The impact is of going from a 1.89 fixed for 5 to whatever it is that you can get now, and it is changing quite regularly. I mean, and that is one of the issues, is that 2 weeks ago you could get a 4.3 fixed rate for 2 years, and now they're creeping up into the 5s, and there's lots of negative media speculation about what that's going to do.
The media I find absolutely fascinating. You could keep sending them as anything that's half decent and level-headed, and they won't publish it. As soon as you give them some bad news, they're all on it like a tramp on chips.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with the newspapers. I know bad news sells newspapers, but I just find it, let's just have a balanced approach on this one. And some newspapers are worse than others. I'm not going to mention any names, the Telegraph. Moving forward, let's look at price changes and the number of price changes. This is one of the highest, this is the highest week for price changes this year at 22,343. Now, we're still only reducing 12.8 to 13% of our stock each month, per month. Okay, but that just shows agents are working their stock, again, ignoring 21 and 22 because we didn't need to do price reductions. Again, it just looks like a normal month, a year, a week between 18 and 19.
It does. I have a problem with some of the slides because they showed just a price change, so it could be a very minimal price change. I think one of the things that agents really do need to look at is, rather than going out and just doing your arbitrary 5% reduction, is that reduction enough, or are you just chasing shadows? And linking it, you've got to link it back to the journey all the way along the way for me, which is, how do you first value a property? Do you use the words, I think your home is worth? Because if you use those words, you're basically making your life significantly harder for the remainder of your contract with that customer. And then when you're actually giving the advice on price, is it the genuinely best advice? Are you actually telling them, are you getting the price reduction because it's nice and easy, and you're using the price points on the portals because that's nice and easy? Or are you actually telling them what it needs to be to get moved?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I think it was Ian White said, if you're doing a price reduction and it doesn't scare you, it's not enough. And, everyone is looking at Rightmove or buyers, and you've got to, I know it sounds so easy and so simple, but you've got to put your property, if your property's not selling, you've got to compare and contrast what your competition is. Look,
Yeah.
If a property don't sell because it's either crappily marketed or it's the wrong price, so look at your photographs, and your photographs are mint, then I'm sorry, you've overcut the price.
Yeah, completely agree.
Average price of a property being reduced is £423,000, remembering that the average price of a property coming on the market is £459,000. So, and we'll come on to what our properties are actually selling for. So what we're finding here is this, it's not, the ones that are selling are at the lower end, the ones that are being reduced on average are in the middle, and the ones that are coming on the market slightly higher. Now, I know it's not middle, upper, it's not as wide as that, but it'd be, again, if that number was higher than the average value of a property coming on the market, then the huge stuff would be being reduced. So that's telling me agents are putting on slightly higher priced properties, but they're not necessarily reducing them, are they?
Well, it might mean that. It might also mean that the stock at the top end is actually selling better because for the first time, it was reported last month before, that there's now only 50% of homeowners in the UK have a mortgage. So
Right.
that is one of the things that really does need to be thought about, is that the increase in interest rates doesn't affect everybody. In fact, some people it serves because they earn more interest for the savings that they've got. And indicatively, the upper quartile or the top end of the market is arguably less held tied by interest rates, arguably.
Yes.
And there's plenty more equity because they've been in them longer. And the feedback we're getting from the network is that the more challenging end of the market is the first-time buyer market, because they are seeing interest rates increase, they're seeing borrowing increase, which is affecting their affordability. But much more importantly, I think we're starting to see the let's wait and see policy with first-time buyers. If interest rates are going up, let's wait and see what happens to them. Will they normalize and come down? And if they are going to affect prices, what does that mean to me? Can I wait and buy a property for 20 or 30,000 pounds less in a few months' time? So again, this is probably more affected by that point, which is top end selling better, less mortgage restriction, bottom end tightening up mortgage restriction.
Good stuff. Now, we do have some stats that show the saleability of properties, but unfortunately, it only looks back at the last year and doesn't look back at the last 3 months. But whilst we're there, let's just have a quick look just for what's names and giggles. In the last year, if you put your property on the market, you would have a 60.08% chance of actually exchanging contracts on it. Okay. But a property that was over £1 million would have a 42% chance of actually exchanging contracts. So there's a great tip for you boys and girls in estate agency land. If someone says, why do you charge more for your property, for your services? We charge more because you've got a less chance of selling the house. Again, interesting, anything up to £250,000 has a chance of 68% selling. And if it has up to 200, it has a 69% chance of selling. I know you like your stats here, don't you? But I just thought,
that flies in the face of what I've just said, doesn't it?
No, hold on a second there, mate. This is the last year.
Okay.
Okay. Now we can look at the last few months, but I haven't got time to do that live unless you can fill for 3 minutes. And that's a little bit naughty to ask. So let's go back. Number of properties sold to the contract. And last week she was 21,400. And this week she's bounced back to 24,712. The running average is 22,206. Any thoughts on this? I mean, again, the graph at the end that shows the weekly stuff is a better graph, but I think it's just good to compare.
Is that gross sales?
This is gross sales. We'll come on to net sales in a second.
Yeah, my concern with gross sales always that we're playing the game of SwapNet. SwapNet is a game that no one wins. And SwapNet is where you've had a sale in your pipeline for 20 weeks, it falls through, then you re-agree it 2 days later. And all you're doing is pushing your cash flow along the line. The big problem with the industry at the moment is cash flow, 100%. It's not necessarily front-end activity.
Just shows that it's good that those agents that focused on lettings 10 years ago are getting a decent cash flow and it's coming in. I know some of you letting agents are losing some of your properties, but remember, landlords are always... The last 15 years, you've probably put on the equivalent of 12 houses on the market and you've lost 8 because 65-year-old landlord wants to get out, rightly so. The unfortunate thing is it's swapped the other way and 12 are selling and 8 are coming in. If you look at the stats on the stamp duty figures, the landlords are still buying quite a lot of properties. It's just that more are selling them. And because we're sentimental animals, we focus on the loss and not necessarily the gain.
Yeah, and I think from just with lettings from that perspective, if you know that you've got certain landlords that are going to churn, I think agents should get on the front foot. So a couple of rhetorical questions. In your towns and locations, do you know who your serial landlords are that still have an appetite and a capacity to increase their portfolio? That's first question. Secondly, have you contacted them to see if they want to do it? Thirdly, have you contacted your landlords who are reluctant? Do you know when their buy-to-let mortgages might be coming up for a renewal, and so therefore erosion of profit margins? And then fourthly, put the two together. Pick up the phone to the reluctant landlord that might think of selling and say, when does your rate increase? I think it's in the next couple of months. Do you want to sell it? And then you get permission to sell it and you sell it to the landlord that's looking to buy. So you get a house sale out of it and you retain your stock.
Because it absolutely scares me how many landlords believe they have to kick their tenant out to sell the house.
Correct.
Absolutely amazing. And again, the fact is this: if all you're doing is collecting the rent and reporting problems, you're just a glorified rent collector.
Yeah.
You are a letting agent, and your job is to manage the portfolio. And if the current landlord, look how old they are, you'll know how old they are, and just look at the, and like Iain says, look at the demographics, look at their mortgage. If you don't know this, you should know this. Why don't you get your landlords in and actually almost do a portfolio review?
Yeah,
They might actually find they've got properties with other agents. You'd be amazed how many do.
I think more than 50% do, according to Sally Lawson, don't they?
I don't know that stat, but I know it's a big number. And if Sally says it, then it must be true because she's absolutely bang on with sort of stuff. People like to spread the love around. The average price of a property selling this week, 376,000 on an average for the year of 358. We're going to talk about this gap in a second. I've got some new slides for you, Iain. Anything before we move on?
No, that's good.
Gross sales year to date, 510. That's interesting when you compare it with 17, 18 and 19. I do have a graphic which shows us where we are as a percentage on net sales to 17, 18 and 19. But again, you can quite clearly see here, we shouldn't actually be comparing ourselves to 21 and 22. Right, gross sales, you could match that almost identically to the listings graph, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. And again, it's the same thing. The next period is the bit that's of most importance, because when you join up all the dots, if you pardon the pun, in all of the data that's coming through, it is we're getting to the point of the year, which is, are we going to recover from a completions perspective? Because we saw a huge hole in the first quarter due to Trussonomics, pull throughs last year. The first quarter has had a run rate which is significantly down. I saw a report saying up to 58% down on exchanges and completions first quarter. And the theory, the experts were saying, don't worry, that is going to happen first quarter, but it is going to catch up for the remainder of the year, and we will see circa 1 million transactions. And we're now at literally at the point of no return, where we've got to see sales continuing for the remainder of this period at a good rate. So a nice upward graph rather than a downward graph to make sure that we can get those completions back end.
See, what is interesting is this is the current run rate that we're running at the moment on net sales. I'm predicting 920 to 950 at the moment.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because I've mapped every run rate on net sales.
Yeah.
Since 17, and that's roughly where we're at. We're mirroring very closely 2017, 18 figures at the moment.
Yeah.
In terms of run rate. So be aware of that, boys and girls. Right, let's come back. Me, I've got this issue about the difference between the asking price of a property selling and the asking price of a property coming on the market. We'll just look at the percentages. There you go, 22%. This is this week.
Yeah.
But again, you're going to say, well, stop panicking, Watkin. Look at the differences here. But these are standalone weeks, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And as a stat, it is concerning. You are absolutely right. This is where local knowledge is crucial. You've got to know what the demand is in your location from your buyers, and try to actually start to have a marketing strategy to go and get the stock that's needed, that's going to sell. But for me, it is a link. You've got to link up the process rather than just be reactionary. You've got to value in the right way. I'll say it for the second time. Stop using the words, I think your home is worth, because that's just going to get reversed over you by the customer. Well, hang on, Chris, you're asking me for a reduction now. Only 3 weeks ago, you told me that you'd definitely get me 472,000. What's gone on? So you've got to make it easy for yourself in the next stage. You've got to have a strategy to have price corrections with the customers, so going out and seeing them and talking through the data, the number of views, viewings, etc., and have a pricing policy. And as Iain Iain White's line, as per usual, is beautiful. If the price reduction doesn't scare you, it's not enough. It's a good headline, isn't it, to get you thinking in a different way?
Indeed. Just have a quick look at the average percentages on the regions. The average in the East Midlands difference is about early teens. In the east of England, the average is about 13 or 14. In London, it is late 20s, knocking on the door of 30. You can see why that screws that figure up. The northeast is around 10 or 11. The northwest is around 15 or 16. Outer London is 6 to 9%, that sort of range. That's interesting, isn't it? But again, outer London, if all outer London is suburbia, then there's not going to be a huge difference. Scotland's running at around 8 or 9%. The southeast, where you are, 12 to 16%. Southwest is running at around 15%. Wales is running at around 18%. West Midlands, all over the place, from as low as 2% all the way up to 18%, but again on average of around 10 or 11. Finally, Yorkshire running at around 10. And
that's really important. I think that's a really important fillet that you've just added in there, Chris. So it is regionalised. So this is a macro figure that skews the figures a little bit, and it is understanding your local marketplace.
Sale fall throughs. This week, 5,905 sale fall throughs. Now, interestingly, last week it was 4,780. The week before, 5,700. The week before, 5,700. So what I think we've got here is the week before we had a bank holiday, and I think what we've had and what we've seen on all the stats is the number of fall throughs is slightly higher in the last month, but the week before was a bank holiday, so obviously some people were away, so the sale fell through, but we didn't actually leave the books because they were on holiday at Center Parcs. Good stuff.
The percentage is the one that worries me. So the headline figure shows that we're fairly close to other figures. I don't know if you've got the percentage of fall throughs, but let's not forget that the sales activity. Yeah, there you go.
No, hold on.
No.
There you go. So it's
starting to creep, isn't it?
It is starting to creep. So the average for all weeks for the last 7 years is 24.28, as you can see on the graph now.
Yeah.
As I said, this week 23.9. The average for this year has been 23.56.
Okay.
So it's not.
So it's okay. It's okay. The next few weeks, the next 6 weeks, showing the trend of a stable marketplace in terms of holidays and bank holidays and all that sort of thing, coronations, is where we're going to see where it's at.
I mean, just to give you an idea, I'm now looking at September, and I'm just 31, 39. This is percentage fall throughs. This is in Q4 last year. 40, 40, 38, 38, 39, 36, 36. Yeah, so the magic thing is be aware of it, but it's not like Q4. Hence what you're absolutely bang on, Iain. That's why Q1 and going into Q2 cash flow has been awfully bad for estate agents, because they would have expected those sales to go through. Let's get back to
with sale agreed. Time is your enemy, and one of the big issues I've got at the moment is that agents aren't thinking right. They're not thinking long term enough to actually start to take control of the process where they can, to actually speed up the process. So exchange ready packs. I'm sorry, guys. I know that lots of agents will think, oh God, Erie is harping on about this again. But convincing your sellers that it's in their interest, which it is, to put their home to market with an exchange ready pack will knock 7 weeks off the process. If you get momentum, if you continue momentum through that sales process, through world-class communication with the buyer and seller and rest of the chain, you will stop the collywobbles. You'll stop the buyers and sellers questioning whether they're doing the right thing, because you get the momentum, and you'll exchange and move a damn sight quicker than they are currently.
And because houses are taking a little bit longer to sell at the moment, the average is about 50 days at the moment. It's not as if they have to delay putting the house on the market to get this pack ready, but start getting the pack ready on listing.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
100%.
you know, I genuinely believe there's an awful lot of listers out there that don't want to put any reason why someone should not put their house on the market with them. So that's why they're really shit, excuse my French, of not pushing that. That, you know, come on, guys. Do you
Yeah.
get a kick from listing? Some of you get more of a kick from listing than actually getting the property away. Your job is not to market the house. Your job is not to get a kick from listing. Your job is to get the house moved, isn't it?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Valuers, listers, whatever they're called, see it as a barrier to get the house on the market. They see it as a reason why the customer won't instruct because you're the only agent in your town saying it. It's actually the opposite. If you choose the right words and articulate it correctly, the customer will understand that genuinely you're the one that's looking to get the job done and get them to achieve their objectives. And you'll win the instruction at a better price and a better fee if you actually make it a holistic offering where you're thinking about the end result rather than just the beginning result.
And boys and girls, when was the last time that you actually went on some training and development? Now, I don't offer training and development. There are plenty of people out there that do. Just, you know, if you're not sure how to frame that to turn it into an advantage, then get some training and development. Your training from Countrywide or Halifax from 20 years ago will only go so far. Get yourself updated, get yourself some continued professional development. Okay, cumulative net sales year to date, we're on 94.4% of the 17, 18 or 19 average. A few weeks ago, that was in the late 80s. So we are slowly creeping up, but we seem to be stubbornly around 94, 93, 94. And we have been there for quite a few weeks. I was hoping that would be 96, 97 now, but only time will tell. I think this is a great graph.
I like this one.
This is net sales. Now we have put 20 and 21 in just for 20 is the yellow dots, 21 is the green, the 22 is the turquoise, and then the white dots is the average of 17, 18 and 19.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And just
it's a brilliant graph. And as I've said already, is the next period is really crucial, isn't it? It's to see what this trend, what this pink line is going to do.
well,
My intel is that the sales activity is still okay, but we'll see what happens in the next few weeks, won't we?
well, as the blind man says, we shall see. Pro sales. Now, again, these are some graphs for more of you data geeks. You just they're not my favorite, but shout up if there's anything you want to say on this, Iain.
This particular gross listings as a percentage.
Yeah, we're on 65 this week. The long-term average is 76, which shows that, okay, we're selling 2/3 of the properties that are coming onto the market. We're slightly below 17, 18 and 19. So again, if that number goes slightly south, then we're going to be getting more houses coming on the market. So it turns it more into a buyer's market.
It's a definite watch out for me in terms of, are we starting to go more into a buyer's market than a seller's market?
Well, to give you an idea, at the start of the year, we were around the mid 60s. As we went into March, we were getting into the early 70s, and we were staying in these 70s for most of the last couple of months. It's only been recently that number's been slightly easing back to mid 60s. So we'll just see that. We'll see if that is a trend or we are easing back. That's a big one to spot at fellow agents on whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market.
And you mentioned training and development. These are the sorts of things that you need to be telling your teams, talking to your teams about in terms of the message, how you're using data to influence behavior. So we have got lots of negativity in the press, which we've already talked about. We've had inflation looking like it's going to be high, growth looking like it's going to be low. Interestingly, just changing tack slightly, there's a podcast that I do called The Home Stretch, and I interviewed a chap called Dr. Savas Satori, who's an econometric expert in the property market, works for the Tosca Fund, and he talks about the fact that inflation, the guidelines for inflation are out of date and inaccurate, and need to be updated, and that the GDP growth mechanisms are out of date and need to be updated, and it's not as bad as actually they are reporting. But as you and I have quite rightly said, Chris, that the media spreads negativity. And so my challenge to all agents out there is, how do you address that balance? How do you give customers the opportunity to deliver a balanced opinion rather than a negative media-led one?
Because if you're not saying it, then they're just going to read the newspapers.
Yeah, exactly right.
You need, we're not asking everyone to get an economics degree, but knowing the trends. So when someone sits down and says, I don't want to reduce my price, or
Yeah.
I need to sell, then become, I know Purple Bricks coined the phrase local property experts, but come on, guys, let's actually be a property expert in your locality.
Yeah.
Price changes, again, just shows that the agents are working their stock.
Yeah.
Right, okay. We're going to now go on to the regional stuff. We're going to whiz through this. The bottom line is, as always, green is good and red is bad. Okay, so we can quite clearly see here that new instructions at the top bounce back from last week. But again, you can see where it says BH, that's where there has been a bank holiday. There's been a lot of bank holidays. Regionally, what you will tend to find is this, and again, you can download these to your heart's content. The whole UK tends to go up and down, so you can see where the green almost columns are, which is good, and you can see the red columns, which are not so good. That they actually match throughout all the regions. The whole UK goes up and down like an oscilloscope, and it goes in tandem. So you won't find one area doing something different, apart from inner London, but that's a story to itself. It could almost be a separate country, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, those are the percentage difference between listing price and sale prices in this black line underneath. And you can see quite clearly, if you download these, why don't you match them to your locality to see how your agency and your town is doing? Okay. Again, everything's going roughly in the same direction. So, just let's not. Interestingly, let's then go and look at gross sales as a percentage of listings. And again, Scotland always is a good, but it's a different legal system. But again, what we're looking for here is trends in terms of colours. So just see, is there anything that's screaming out at you? Because that's going to make it, that's the thing that's going to scream, is there any differences? Percentage of sales that fall through. Again, you can quite clearly see here, Yorkshire seems to be the best area for fall throughs, because it has the most greens, whilst the areas that don't do so well for fall throughs is outer London.
Yeah.
Interestingly, inner London's not so bad. But again, look at your locality, look at your region, and just see the trends and see how your agency is comparing. And again, what we're looking for, what you'll be looking for there is it changing slightly? There, is my region changing compared to other regions? Price changes as a percentage of listings. Again, just showing you trends. You can quite clearly see here that east of England and southeast, those are the agents that seem to be working their stocks, whilst West Midlands and Yorkshire, come on guys, get your fingers out. Or are you putting them on at the right price? Could be.
Yeah.
And then finally, we've got the stats here, which is net sales as a percentage of listings, which again just shows you that in the north, you have a greater chance of selling it because it's all the greens. I mean, look at this. Isn't this interesting? Inner London, you're having a 30% chance of actually selling, whilst in Yorkshire, you've got a 60 or 70% chance of selling. Notice how this week everything's dropped slightly compared to the other months, other weeks. Before we go on, I just wanted to share this graph here. I want you to ignore the average property price, but basically what this is, the number of properties that are sold, subject to contract each month. The turquoise number is 21, the darker blue is 22, and red is 23. You can quite clearly see that we're on the 15th of June, so the numbers are slightly lower, but you can quite clearly see, if you can look at that, how the number of properties sold to the contract, this is gross sales, has drifted off compared to last year. I just thought that was a nice graph just to see.
Yeah, it is. And that graph in itself isn't the problem. It's how you've prepared for it. So we were at the end of a heady market. There's always a tougher market, and it's really how agents have prepared for that, knowing that it's on its way. And I know there are very many that have, but there are also very many that haven't, and they're almost surprised that it isn't as easy to sell homes and get exchanges as it was in the last 12 months.
Right, mate. Shall we crack on and get ourselves over to the beautiful place of Halifax. Okay. And let's just pull up that.
There used to be a nightclub in the centre of Halifax, didn't there?
Did there? What was it called?
I can't remember. It was up on a hill.
Everything's on a hill in Halifax.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay, boys and girls. So the data that we have provided so far for the show and the data that we're actually showing you now is the 20EA Insights platform. Okay. This is available to estate agents. They give me access to the national one, and in return, it's a symbiotic relationship, it's a barter. I mention it, I don't get paid for this, but you could have all of this data on your town that you can look at, so you can compare and contrast yourself to your competition and use this data to get you more listings. Because this wonderful bit of kit, you know, when agents are going in saying, I can't get the fee, well, why don't you, this bit of kit will actually, as long as you can prove that you've got the data to prove it, you might not be as good as you think you are as an estate agent, this bit of kit can actually show you that you can sell houses quicker and for more money and have a greater chance of selling as well. Okay, so instead of saying, you know, well, should we dive in and have a look? I know guild members have a form of insights on their platform, on theirs, and again, my message out to guild agents is this: come on, guys, it's a great bit of kit. Use it to your advantage. Yeah. I know someone who does use it very, very well is Angie Cooney from Rugeley. Isn't it interesting that she is one of the best guild agents and wins all the awards, and she has market share, just impressive market share. Big shout out to Angie. Love you to bits.
Hi, Angie.
Right then, so we're looking at Halifax, and we're looking at the postcodes HX1 through to HX6. Okay. And immediately we're going straight into new instructions. Okay, so I'm just going to keep talking, and Iain, I want you just to cut across when you've got something of interest. So first thing that we are going to do is going to compare and contrast the top 10 estate agents. Let's look at listings, because that's where it's about. So since the 1st of Jan 21 to the 14th of June, which was yesterday, we're filming this on Thursday, the 7,170 houses have come on the market, with an average price of £220,000. Classic bell curve there. That's what we like to see. Let's dive in and go and look. And let's remember the 220 figure, because then we'll be able to judge which agent is upper quartile and lower quartile. Upper quartile. William H. Brown, part of the Connell Sequence Group, and they're diving in at 164. So whilst their market share is hovering around 11%, again, that seems to be pretty stable, between 10 and 15. They tends to be at the lower quartile or lower to mid quartile. Let's go and look at Peter David, 198. So again, pretty consistent there. Nice one, Peter David Properties. So let's just have a quick look. Do you have any guild members in
We do, yeah. There's a few around the outskirts, but in the centre is Charnock Bates.
Okay, good stuff. Now, let me just pull that up 2 seconds. I just need to get my screen sorted out.
Whilst you're doing that, Chris, if we go back to the first slide that we showed that said that the average listing price in the UK was 472, but here we are in Halifax and the average prices are 160 and 190, it does prove my point about the major cities skewing the figures. So it is really, so every guild member, please get onto Insight. It's in the members hub and have a look and see what's happening in your towns, because you get this data yourselves. But and other independent agents, please, if you haven't got this knowledge, it would be good to get this knowledge, because knowledge gives you power.
Right, so we've got Peter David. They are an independent estate agent. Noel runs the show there. Great established staff, been there many years. They just old school. They build relationships. And yeah, really, really good estate agent at Peter David. Let's just have a look at there. So there we go. They tend to be pretty across the board in terms of average price. Let's go to VJ estate agents. So VJ estate agents is Virginia Galloway. I don't know much about them. I've left a couple of messages for them. They never return my call, which is a shame.
Average property price is high, isn't it? So they're clearly sort of upper quartile, I guess.
Yeah, looks like it. Let's go and look at Reed's Reigns.
The corporates have always been strong in that area. I mean, historically, back in the Halifax days, it was a sort of the bedrock of the business, really.
Reed's Reigns, we've got Jamie there. I had a chat with him. He's a decent lad, is Jamie. Likes, firm believer in good online presence, good write-up. Yeah, a nice chap. We've got Property Kemp oh no, it's Reed's Range is 176. We've got Property Kemp and Co. And again, yeah, decent high number, don't you think?
Yeah, for the average value as well.
Okay, let's go and look at Bramley's. So 183 there. Okay. Paul there is an RICS firm, total really old school. And yeah, not nice. Yeah, just proper traditional family house business. I spoke to a couple of the guys there. Yeah, quite impressed actually.
I think for those independent agents that are listing at in the mass market, is the question would be, clearly there is an upper end of the market there. So what's your strategy to actually go and get increase to make your brand a whole of market brand? That's where it's at for me in this marketplace, because you're spreading your bets in terms of activity across the entire market.
Yep. Okay, so our first online agent comes in, Strike. I know they've been spending a bit of money up there on the advertising. Yeah, so Strike. I mean, YouMove. I mean, the YouMove. I'm a big fan of YouMove. In terms of their model, they seem with their average price at 223. I tried to get hold of Mike, left him a couple of messages, didn't come back. But interestingly, I don't know if you've noticed this, is have you noticed how tight the market share is on these?
Yeah, it is. I have noticed that. It is very tight, isn't it? William H. Brown, quite a bit ahead. It'd be really interesting to know what the staffing profile is of William H. Brown versus the others. How many people they've got out, what their structure is. And that's, that could give some telltale signs for others. That you just need boots on the ground, or you need better marketing, or you need a canvassing strategy, etc. With all of these things, whenever I look at localized performance, one of the questions is, talk to me about your opposition, tell me what they're doing, and it is asking those questions: number of heads, how active are they, what's their social media policy, are they prospecting, are they using great tools that are out there to canvass opportunity, how proactive are they actually being?
Finally, we've got Dawson's, and we've got a lovely chap called Matthew there. Again, proper good Yorkshireman, old school. Liked him, young lad. But yeah, I like the cut of his jib. Was Dawson's. Again, they seem to be middle of the road. That's what we like to see. Right then, now then, this is my favourite graph of all time. You know this. Okay. So what I want you to look at, boys and girls, is this: ignore new instructions market share, sale agreed or sale agreed market share, ignore fall throughs, ignore price changes. Well, we'll just have a quick look at the price changes. It looks like Reed Rains and Ryder Dutton have got some decent look at price reductions there. Well done, William H. Brown, guys. Normally, you guys have got one of the highest price changes. So obviously shows that you guys are putting good houses on the market, whether you're using your market position and being sensible with your pricing. Well done. But this is the big one. If a property leaves an estate agency, only leaves for two reasons: she either exchanges or she comes off the books. Okay. And remember, as Brian Mansell says, we're here to sell houses and get people moved, not get them exchanged. Not get them. Start again. It's a bit early in the morning, isn't it? We're here to get houses moved, not houses marketed. So therefore, the average estate agent in Halifax, for every 100 houses they put on the market, will exchange on 65.9% of them.
Yeah.
William H. Brown at 71. Peter David at 77, YouMove at 74, VJ's at 79. That's a good figure. Property Kemp 68, Reed's Rains 58. That's a bit low for Reed's Rains, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is a bit low, and their sale agreed ratio is low, and their price reduction ratio is high. So again, if I were in opposition to them, sorry, Reed Rain, but if I was in opposition to them, I would know these stats. And if they're out buying the instruction, as in overvaluing, and that's a rhetorical question, not a statement. If they are doing that, I would know their stats to be able to educate the consumer.
Right, as we go down, so Strike at 57. Now that's interesting because normally nationally they do actually have some quite decent figures.
Yeah.
We've got Bramley's, we've already mentioned those guys. We've got Paul there. Dawson's Bridgefords are part of Countrywide at 65. Dawson's good number at 79.
Yeah.
Look at Redwoods at 85. Well done, Redwoods on that one. Who have we got at Redwoods? We've got Richard. Yeah, been there 40 years, in his late 50s, early 60s with his son. Yeah, I liked him. Good West Yorkshire chap. We liked him. Let's look at Whitegates as well. Jez there. You've got 72. So these are quite tight. Normally they're all over the place. So well done, Halifax estate agents, on that one. Anything else you want to mention from this? No,
I mean, knowledge is power. Knowing your oppo's performance is a good thing. You are right; they are actually very tight and very consistent. Usually on these graphs, it shows some quite big extremes where you can go and see very clearly the agents that are overvaluing to win the instruction, because you can see the trend that goes through all the other metrics. But yeah, some good performances there. For me, I'm really interested that there are a couple of agents that are listing significantly higher than others. So again, I'd just be wondering what they're doing, what tools they're using, how are they getting it? Then if I were in that town, how would I create a whole of market brand?
There you go. Look, William H. Brown head and shoulders, Peter David on their tails, and then a big lump between 3 and 10, all very close within that late 3s, early 4s. Exactly. Interestingly, the number of online estate agents is quite high at 12.9% compared to the national average of 5.1.
Yeah.
And then this here on the right-hand side shows you their growth in new listings. And it looks like, well done, you move. I think it's Mike, we said, up there. Peter David, again, their guys are doing well. Ryder Dutton, doing well. So again, there's some growth here, an average of 20%. So is your listings more than 20%? Because if it's more than 20%, you are outgrowing your competitors in Halifax.
That graph that you've got at the bottom there, which you're just clicking on, top right for me is where I'd want to be, which is higher volume, higher price.
Yeah, if it's off to the right, more listings. If it's higher up, it's the average price. And again, this just shows you what your movements are. And I think again, if you just want to you just can click on one. So again, there's Reed's Reigns. Look, massive move. I don't know what Reed's Reigns. Big well done to you guys there. Look how far that you have moved up there. As you've moved up, not in only number of instructions, but the price as well. So look at William H. Brown. They've hardly moved. Okay, VJs have moved up. Well done, Virginia. Bridgefords, hardly any change. You can just play. You just play with this to your heart's content. Right, let's move on to the next report. So this is there's some interesting stats there. Right, so basically this particular is a bit of an Excel spreadsheet heaven, but what in essence it's doing is for every house that William H. Brown have put on the market, the 20EA platform have done a Valpal figure for it, or an automated valuation model. Other automatic valuation models are available, and they'll do the same for Peter David, and they'll do the same for YouMove, and they'll do everyone. And then what they've looked at all your properties that come on the market, and the first thing they do is they then look at what you put the house on the market for and compare the difference between what they think it's worth. So they think it's worth 100 and you put it on for 105. That means that there is a 5% difference. That is that percentage there. Okay. So therefore, William H. Brown are putting their asking price on average 1.5% above what they think it's worth. You can quite clearly see here, you've got Strike are not overvaluing, but they are certainly being optimistic with their pricing. Is that a fair comment, Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. Although the next Red would say that maybe it is a little bit over optimistic, but
okay. Then what percentage do you get from your original asking price? So you can quite clearly see here that Strike.
That's the point I was making,
Yeah. Put it on at 4.2 and but then they have to take a big hit at 4.7. So what does all that mean? Because that could, you could add them up and you could take the difference. The magic thing is this: if everyone put a £250,000 house on, what would they actually sell it for? Okay. And William H. Brown would sell it for 253, Peter David 257, You Move 251, and VJ's Virginia 253, Property Kemp & Co 256. So therefore, if I was at Kemp & Co and going up against You Move, I would actually say, Mr. Vendor, I will get you £3,000 more, because that's the difference between those two figures there. 3,000 or nearest, damn it, £3,000 more. This is how you can prove how you get higher fees, by using this statistics. Okay, it does look a bit of a geek heaven, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've always struggled with this graph. I've seen it, this chart. I've seen it many times.
That's what it is. That
basic.
Look, the magic thing is this: ignore all this, and ignore all these columns here. Is this? If everyone put a house on for 250, what would each agent sell it for?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it in a nutshell. I wanted to explain why. Now, and the bottom line is this: William H. Brown will get 253, and Peter David will get 257.
Yeah,
that's what that's saying. You've got to be very careful the way you market this.
Yeah,
you have to be very careful. But how powerful is this when you've got your iPad out and you can show it to the vendors? Mrs. Miggins, I'm from Peter David, will get you £4,200 more.
Yeah,
or however much it is. That's powerful, and that's independent. Okay.
Yeah,
it's all from the 20 EA insights. I said I'm not being paid to do it, but it just shows you how powerful stats are. So if you're finding it difficult with your to prove your value, I think certainly Peter David, you can certainly say, look, you might have to pay me an extra £400, but you're going to get £3.5 grand more in your pocket. Okay, let's have a look. Which agents are selling their houses quicker? And we can quite clearly see here that Peter David is the agent. Oh no, hold on. You Move are the quickest estate agent. Okay, in terms of selling, with Bramley's coming in second. But then how quick do the agents then actually do this sales chasing? And we quite clearly see William H. Brown are the best for sales chasing. But interestingly, did you notice that their new instruction to sale agreed is longer? So I'm suspecting that the branch manager there is not hitting the word sold until probably the survey's been done. So therefore, what we do is just jump in, because I'll keep talking if you don't.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you add the two together, and Peter David will get your house away in 152. You Move 153. Look, that's really tight, Ian, isn't it?
It is, but this is the most important data of the property sector at the moment. How quickly you are turning your stock from instruction to revenue. Now I know that we always do things, agents always do things for the good of their customers, and I sit really comfortably with that, because we take their instructions and we do what's best for them. But ultimately, it's how quickly you're going to get paid. Can you think of any other industry in the world where you sell a product on day one and you get paid 6 months later? I can't think of many.
And you do all the work, and it could go, what's the name up with it 2 hours to go.
Yeah, and so
you're rocking over a tank of oil or something.
Absolutely, 100%. And so this is where agents have really got to think outside the box in terms of how can they improve their timescales on completions. Because if you do something different, it ain't going to change.
Why do you think the industry is not embracing getting packs ready? Because it's not a silver bullet, but it's pretty good.
I don't know why, because it is really, because it probably ticks the too hard box, and it ticks the I've got to change box. So if you're not prepared to change, you're not prepared to do something different, then just accept it's going to take you 7 months to get your money. But if you want to get your cash flow improved and get it down to 3 or 4 months, which it would make that difference, is do something about it. There is a conveyancing meeting next week where I will be saying to conveyancers, put your rates up, have less customers, make more money, charge more, and get exchange ready packs with estate agents.
I wish you well on that one, because we've been banging on about that for a long time. I think again, it's just fear of change. Let's look at this. Let's look at rentings before we go. Now, we've got to be really careful with renting, because a lot of agents haven't been putting their properties on the market. They've just been letting them out, so it's not been hitting the portals. but it just gives you a flavour, and quite clearly here that Open Rent, which is a private organisation which landlords can list their properties with, are the #1 agent.
Yeah.
What is interesting, Ian, is this: the further north you go up, the higher the propensity of Open Rent to be either #1 or have a bigger share. As long as when you go to London, it's really low.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. So
True.
William H. Brown, well done, William H. Brown. You are #1 in terms of estate agents, letting agents, being high street. Peter David. Again, let's just see. Is there a student marketing? There is.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
So
not.
we should see some really big spikes coming up in activity soon, because I was speaking to a letting agent in Belfast yesterday, and they're just bracing themselves for the move-in period.
Yeah, it's crazy time. Yeah, where basically like hundreds of houses all move in and then all move out on the same day. Crazy.
Right.
Again, we can look at the graphs, but again, I think you have to take it all with a pinch of salt. But it just shows you what the new instructions have been through all the different agents.
Yeah.
Again, market share lettings is quite a difficult one to get a landlord to swap agents. I mean, my daytime job is I help letting agents attract landlords to letting agents.
Yeah.
And it is hard work, and you have to play the long game on this one. But
Yeah.
I think it's just good for you boys and girls in Halifax just to see how you compare to your competitors.
Yeah.
Right, I think we're there with the stats, mate. Let's come back. Final thoughts from you. 23.
Final thoughts are: it's a tough marketplace at the moment because it's actually arguably still very busy in the front end. There's still lots of opportunity and lots going on. It is a little bit dicey in terms of what way it's going to go for the next period, but I actually think it will be okay. The problem is you're working super hard and then not getting the cash in because of the completion timescales. And for me, that is the biggest issue in the market at the moment. Activity's okay. Have a story to have the right story to influence behavior with the consumers, because all they're hearing is negativity on one hand. Give them some positivity on the other. Absolutely work on your cash flow and getting completions in.
As always, Ian, you are extremely good value for money. Thank you very much. You will be getting a royal invite back to the show in a month or so time, because your insight is absolutely amazing. There's no wonder you are the El Boss, El Presidente of the Guild of Property Professionals, which is an excellent organization, an affiliate scheme that you can join. Obviously, other ones are available because we don't take preference on this, but it is really, really good. And you work on a basis of you only one agent per town. How do people contact you, Ian, if they were, is it a website? Is it guildproperty.co.uk or something?
It is guildproperty.co.uk, correct.
So do check that out because it is a good affiliate. Again, like most things, if you want value for money from it, you have to actually engage with it. If you're just buying it for a badge, it's not a lot. It is a lot of money, but if you engage with it, get what they do, they've got some great insights, some great people there. I think you'll find a lot of benefit from joining the guild. As I said, other affiliate programs are available. Thank you for your time, Ian. You've been exceptional. I hope you've enjoyed it. But more importantly, thank you for watching the show. We appreciate the time that you invest in watching this. We hope you enjoy it. And we'll come back next week with the next show for week 24. And let's see what the stats have in hold for that. Thank you, everyone.